here from Rio de Janeiro, good evening, who is in Europe or Asia. It's a great pleasure for us to begin this session on Latin America from this excellent seminar that began yesterday, the Race of Asian Global History and Perspective. In this case, this year dedicated to the 60 years after Belgrade, what non-alignment in multipolar world and for global future, which will finish tomorrow. Our session is divided in two, really, session 11 and session 12, and are going to be dedicated on Latin American, and is going to be to make a balance of what's the impact of non-alignment movement in our continent, Latin America and the Caribbean, from different perspectives. We will have with us 4 participants in the round table. From Chile, Isabel Cabana. From Colombia, José David Moreno. From Brazil, Samuel Pinheiro Guimarães, who will be with us in a while. From Peru, Rafael Roncagliolo. And from Ecuador, Pedro Paez, who we expect that he can join us this morning. I would like to begin our meeting today with some lines of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, our wonderful writer, Colombian writer, who made a beautiful speech in 1982 when he received the Nobel Prize of Literature. If you let me share these few ideas that I think that has to be with our amazing history in Latin America, especially after colonization. So I picked some lines of this speech. Solidarity with our dreams would not make us feel less alone, as long as it does not materialize with acts of legitimate support for peoples who assume the illusion of having a life of their own in the division of the world. Latin America does not want and does not have to be bishop without agency, or does it have anything chimerical that its designs for independence and originality become a Western aspiration? Against oppression, looting, abandonment, our answer is life. Neither the floods, nor the plagues, neither the famines, nor the cataclysms, not even the eternal wars through centuries and centuries have managed to reduce advantage of life over death. Faced with this overwhelming reality that through all human time must have seemed like an utopia, we, the inventors of fables, who believe everything, feel entitled to believe that it's not yet too late to start the creation of our opposite utopia, a new and devastating utopia of life, where no one can decide for others even the way to die, where love is truly true and happiness is possible, where lineage condemned to 100 years of solitude have finally and forever a second chance on earth. With these words that can inspire our session, I would like to, following the program and the order of the speakers, I would like to present Isabel Cabana from Chile. She has a degree in history from University of Chile, Bachelor in Asian Studies at Catholic University of Chile, master degree and PhD in International Relations at Ritsumeikan University, Japan, and she is member of ALADA, Chile, which is a Latin American Association for Asia and African Studies. Welcome to our meeting, Isabel, and please feel free to begin your presentation.
excuse me, Isabel and Monica, I was with Ambassador step by step trying to support him to enter. The problem is that even with step by step, he received a notification that login or email failed. And this is a technical problem that I can't solve. What can we do, Darwish?
I don't have any knowledge in this case
Could you?
It means the problem is maybe is in his side, because other people they don't have such problem.
I will do the following. I will again make the inscription for him. Perhaps it's something he has done in a wrong way while with the formula to be able to participate. I don't know. I'm sorry, I will be with him because he is really very nervous.
Yeah,
and I try to support him. Okay?
I understand. So maybe one of the students, Guillaume, maybe you can ask Guillaume. Vous pouvez demander à quelqu'un d'accompagner Madame Bissio?
Demander à quelqu'un?
Non, elle est en train de régler l'entrée de Monsieur l'ambassadeur de Brésil.
Oui, ça j'ai compris.
Ouais, mais apparemment, il a une difficulté.
Il est très nerveux parce que il reçoit la réponse que le email ou le password ne pas reconnaître.
D'accord. I think I can answer that. It's fairly easy.
Is that he's probably trying to log into his own Zoom account, and maybe he forgot his email, his password. But I think you can join this meeting without logging into your account as well.
No, you can't.
No.
You can't.
You have to log in. There's an easy solution. He just have to either change his password. He will then receive an email asking him the new password, or he can just create a new account and then log in, and then he'll be able to join the meeting.
You think that the problem is with his account in Zoom?
Yeah.
Not with the conference ID or login or nothing?
If it says email or password incorrect, no, it's from his own Zoom account.
From his account.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll do my best to support him with this orientation. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Beatriz. Then can we go ahead with our program? Then, please, Isabel. Would you like to share any PowerPoint or presentation, Isabel?
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you so much. But yes, my internet is very unstable.
Oh.
So for now, I think it's better just to present. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can, yes.
Okay, thank you. And how long do we have? 50 minutes?
From 10
now
to
15 already attention, now it's already 29 minutes late, because we are supposed to start at 2 o'clock. Now it's 2:29.
Okay, so I will shorten as much as possible. I'll do my best. Well, thank you so much, Monica, for the presentation. What I want to do today is to present Chile's involvement in the non-aligned movement. And this presentation will address the participation of Chile in the movement and the conferences by examining the history of the involvement with focus on its origins, the 18 years of absence, and the renewed approach to the movement after its the reincorporation. The decision of Chile to become a full member of the non-aligned movement in 1971 was grounded, among other reasons, in the values shared with the movement and its countries, which were in synchrony with the project that the Unidad Popular's government of Salvador Allende was looking for. Despite being a socialist government, Salvador Allende intended to build a Chilean path, a Chilean-based socialism, beyond the scope of the USSR or any intervention of the powers, and to work on Latin America to become an important region to the non-aligned movement. The leading role of the country intended to play was interrupted by a military coup backed by the US in 1973, which put an end to that project and marked the 18 years absence of Chile as a non-aligned movement member. And since in reincorporation in 1991, Chile's approach adapted in accordance with its own internationalization project, which has been based on economic cooperation, trade, and development. So this is not my area of study, so I needed to prepare and go back to the history and to look at the context and understand the participation. And I was surprised to know that the participation of Chile was much more complex than I thought. First of all, for Latin America, since the colonial independence processes that we lived in the 19th century and early 20th, the major goal has to overcome the economic and cultural dependence, and later to set free or get free from the influence of the United States. And during the Cold War, the US were pushing the agenda for the Alliance for Progress that meant to cooperate in the US terms with the Latin American countries. Any attempt from our countries to recover or regain sovereignty over especially our natural resources meant a threat to the interest of the United States. So in this regard, the non-aligned movement that started in the 61 meant a great deal for our region to engage in international forums and to reflect over the common experience of colonialism, exploitation, and hegemony. We all know that the non-aligned movement started with Africa and Asia. So the inclusion of Latin America made it actually a worldwide movement. And the first representative was Cuba, even though there were in the first summit 3 countries that were observers: Bolivia, Brazil, and Ecuador. But by the second summit, we already have 10 countries observers, and so on. The involvement of the region was already complete within almost 10 years. Chile joined 10 years after the inauguration of the movement. In 1971, the country was experiencing deep transformation after, as I mentioned, the accession to power of Salvador Allende in 1970. Allende was the only socialist president to be democratically elected in the context of the Cold War. He ruled between 1970 and 1973. Allende aimed to build, as I mentioned, the Chilean path to socialism. And his idea was to have political independence from the USSR and actually also from Cuba. I don't know if you know, but in 1971, Fidel Castro visited Chile and he stayed a month. And Allende didn't know what to do to kick him out because he really wanted to show to the world that this was not just another country within the sphere of the Soviet bloc. So in this sense, the project of the non-aligned movement was in line with the national project of the Unidad Popular, to go beyond the bipolarity and the self-determination, economic and cultural sovereignty, a cultural decolonization. So these were shared values with the non-aligned movement and actually the Bandung Conference of the 55. For Chile, the movement meant the materialization of a collective action that would gather all these nations that did not want to be involved or dragged in this bipolarity. In the strategy of Chile was focused on having a bigger role internationally. So forums or settings as NAM were crucial to Chile to advancing the goals of the Unidad Popular, particularly regarding the natural resources. So for that, Chile participated in the joint declaration of the 77 developing countries issued at the end of the first session of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development in 1964, and also hosted the third United Nations Conference of Trade also and Development in the 72. In the same year, he organized a UNESCO seminar on art, because it also meant cultural emancipation. And particularly, one of the concerns of Chile was the law of the sea, in terms of national sovereignty and the use of national resources without international intervention. For Chile, this does not mean, although it does not mean autarky, since it believed, as stated in this UNTAD meeting, that to overcome non-development was through subsidies, investment, but also the improvement of commercial relations between world powers and the third world. Another axis of the Unidad Popular's foreign policy was Latin American collaboration, because it meant Salvador Allende believed in this idea of the anti-imperial, anti-colonial, and anti-racist values that could be shared with the other countries. And here he found the commonality with the rest of the countries in Asia and Africa. In the third summit of the non-aligned movement was going to be held in Argel in September 1973. But as you probably already know, that month was the coup organized by the military in Chile. So Chile's membership was highly encouraged by this time. It was initially encouraged by Tito, but Allende was personally invited by Boumediene of Argel, but Allende could not come and apologize and explain to the leader that it was not possible. So he sent instead his foreign ministry, Clodomiro Almeida. Clodomiro's presentation addressed the issue of the Falklands Islands in support of Argentina, support the Panama claims on the canal, and other regional issues, because they wanted to stress that idea of Latin America. And that participation and the other efforts raised the discussion of giving Chile the vice presidency of the non-aligned movement. The involvement actually of the US in Chile's happening was also noted in the third conference, and it was an example of the extent of the interference of the powers. It was actually also discussed that Santiago de Chile could become the next city that would welcome a summit. But Chile's membership, however, started and ended in one summit, in that third summit. Once the military took over the power, the military junta tried to maintain, however, Chile's foreign policy and its international commitments, and they wanted to get the recognition, because they wanted to get the recognition of the international community. Therefore, in terms of the non-aligned movement, Chile declared adherence to the principles and to the movement under this military government. They stressed the stance on the law of the sea, but there was no longer agreement, obviously, over the social and political issues in general. Actually, I want to show you, if I can, very briefly, and with this I'm just finishing. Sure. I want to show you this. In the 5th Summit Conference of Head of States, and governments of the non-aligned movement, the declaration addressed the situation in Chile, expressing that the conference paid homage to the Latin American leader, Salvador Allende, and who was killed in '73 by the military, and expressed its deep concern over the aggression and presence of imperialism in Chile, which is reflected in the reversal of the process of recuperating natural resources and making economic and social transformations in the country. And then the conference also ratified the decision to keep the situation in Chile under its permanent observation and to promote solidarity with its people. This homage to Salvador Allende actually meant that the junta withdrew the participation of Chile, and for 18 years, Chile did not participate in the non-aligned movement and actually was very much isolated for all the years of the dictatorship. During those years, Chile changed completely its economic system and started a very aggressive period of reforms, of neoliberalism and opening of the markets. So after the end of the dictatorship, Chile reincorporated to the movement in 1991, part of its internationalization process to reconnect to the world and to gain legitimacy again. In that time, those years, the world was witnessing the victory of the United States, basically the victory of neoliberalism. And since then, Chile's approach has been to reconnect and resignify the membership and international engagement based on the norms and values that Chile began to adopt in the 90s in accordance with its own internationalization process, which has been economic cooperation, trade, and development. Because of that, the non-aligned movement was no longer relevant in Chile's foreign policy. Actually, it is almost non-existent in press releases and official documents from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And in the 50th anniversary of the non-aligned movement, the only declaration that there is from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Chile, Chile's intervention stressed the adaptability of the movement, its dynamism, and how the context has changed, how today the world and NAM nations face new challenges, and actually stress a lot the idea of commercial relations, economic development, cooperation, and scientific and technological advances and human capital investment are the levers to truly change the life of people. And that's the way in some will once again the NAM become a central element in the advancement of our people. This is 2011. So discursively, Chile kept the ideas of development and economic growth, but no other major and deep original values. Of course, always in terms of this developing country. The incorporation and participation of Chile in the movement are highly rooted in the nature of the governments. Allende's project for the country was dependent on the values and principles adopted by the movement and the place he wanted the country to have, the role he wanted the country to play, needed for him to have a more active role in the international community. So this movement, for him, particularly for Allende, was the perfect forum to give legitimacy to that project. But post-dictatorship, Chile's foreign policy in this sense is not compliant with agendas, but is very coherent, since it has acted internationally based on domestic goals of liberalizations and the opening of the market. And because of that, the non-aligned movement, as I mentioned, seems to be no longer a priority. Okay, thank you so much. And so sorry if I took more than the time.
Thank you very much, Isabel, for your very interesting presentation, and you were on time. Thank you. Now I would like to give the microphone to José David Moreno from Colombia. He is Bachelor in Public Administration, Public Administration High School, Colombia. He's Bachelor also in History at Universidad Nacional de Colombia, and has a master's degree in Modern and Contemporary History by Université Lumière Lyon 2 na França. master degree in political science and international relations at University Jean Moulin Lyon 3, a PhD in history by National University of Colombia. He is professor of the Department of Political Science and Government at the University of Bogota, Jorge Tadeo Lozano, and actually he's visiting professor at Kyoto Ritsumenkian University from summer 2019. Please, Jose, with the microphone.
Thank you so much, Monica, and the other participants in this panel. So I will share very little presentation. Okay, so you can see my presentation?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you again. We're here. So I put the title, being a member of the NAM, loyal to the White House at the same time. The ambivalence of Colombian foreign policy since 1974 is the year that Colombia entered to the NAM as a country, observer country. So why that? Because I think that there is two goals in this foreign policy from Colombia. So being at the NAM, but at the same time, Colombia is a very, very good ally of the United States. All the 20th century, even in the 21st century, is one of the best allies in the region in Latin America. I will say that as that after, but I think that one of the more effective allies for the United States in Latin America was Venezuela. And after 1999 with Hugo Chavez, Colombia became the other big country as ally of the United States. But at the same time, Colombia is part of the NAM, and Colombia has the presidency between 1995 and 1998. So for a kind of a starting question, for this very short presentation, I hope, how to understand Colombia's participation in the NAM and an unconditional policy with the United States at the same time. That is a very brief question for today. So, as a historian, I have to make a very short background of Colombia's participation in the NAM. So I tried to put here the name of presidents of this moment. So we start with the 70s, the first approach, because in 1974, Colombia became observer country in the presidency of Alfonso López. He was a president of kind of, in Colombia it's very difficult to speak about the right and left. Yeah, because most of the political parties are from right. In Colombia, we have never left government until now. So López was a kind of left, but in the right of the political system in Colombia. So we became observer country at that moment. But after him is another president, José in between 1978 and 1982. At the end of the 70s, there is a very negative image of Colombia abroad in the world. Why so? Because with César Turbay, we have a very high violation of human rights. In the fight against guerrillas, especially human guerrilla at the moment called M19. And so it's the period for Colombia, for Argentina, Brazil, most of the countries in Latin America, of the national security doctrine. Yeah, the enemy it's inside of the country was the doctrine at the period. So a very high violation of human rights in this period of Julio Cesar Turbay. So a very negative image in Colombia. So the key of this presentation is that the 80s. In the 80s, I think that there is a very interesting change for Colombia for his foreign policy. For example, here we have President Belisario Betancourt in 1982-1986. I think that most of the in the right, most of the left, in terms of political, he was a member of a conservative party, but he was. There is a very interesting history here because he was a very polemic president. And trying to establish an autonomy foreign policy vis-a-vis of the United States. Yeah, for example, he led a policy for help Central American countries in this period for ending the civil wars at the moment. So he wanted a real peace, peace process with the guerrillas in Colombia. So for most of the elite in Colombia, he was from left, in political terms from left. His first name is Belisario. Here he was known as Lenin, as the leader of the USSR. Lenin Sario was the name for him. Yeah, so with him, I think there is a very interesting change. In the 80s, we found a policy of peace and autonomy vis-a-vis of the United States. And we became a full member of the NAM with him. Yeah, I think that he was really interested in the peace in Colombia, and for him, being part of the NAM and being more independent from the United States was a very interesting key for making the peace with the guerrillas. So for show, oh, yeah, we are not really the most the slaves of the United States. We are different. We are another country. For trying to show to the guerrillas a different way guarantees for making the peace. And after him, there is another president, a very interesting president, Virgilio Barco, between at the end of the 80s, that continued more moderate than Belisario Betancourt. He continues the autonomy policy vis-a-vis of the United States. So it's a very interesting period. Is the only period of this kind of foreign policy. It's very interesting. We can discuss in another space that, but other countries in Latin America made the same. Yeah. So that is a change with the 90s. It's the end of the Cold War. And I think for the NAM, there is a very good, very interesting reflections about the end of the Cold War, but the NAM continues. Yeah. So President Cesar Gaviria make a very interesting action with trying to be trying to the president of the NAM. For Colombia, yeah, Colombia was president, has the president of the NAM between 1995 and 1998, but it's a period of change. Yeah, the new challenges before the end of the Cold War is the new goals for the NAM after the end of the Cold War. And is the period of approach to South cooperation. For Colombia, it was a period starting from the 80s and in the 90s for trying the new foreign policy with other countries from Africa, from Asia, because most of the time the relation was with Europe and the United States. So it's a very interesting period for Colombia for trying to making different relations with South cooperation and other countries. Yeah, and finally fight against the great social and political problems derived from underdevelopment. In Colombia, 90s was a very difficult decade because of very high economical problems, very high levels of poverty, and of course the great phenomena of the drug traffic. So in the NAM, Colombia tried to show the drug traffic as a global problem, not a Colombian problem, but it's a global problem. That's the most interesting action of Colombia in the NAM during the 90s. For showing that, showing the poverty, the drug traffic, the violence, the guerrillas, and other problems are because of the underdevelopment. So NAM is a kind of forum for Colombia for helping our problems. Well, after him, another president, Mr. Samper, and in the beginning of the 21st century, Colombia was a very low participation of the NAM. I will explain after that. Very marginal action in the NAM after Gaviria and Samper. No, Colombia was a very irrelevant role in the NAM. And after, in the recent years, President Juan Manuel Santos tried to call again the NAM for supporting the peace process with the FARC. So the goal moment for Colombia in the NAM was the 80s, again, the 80s, this moment with Belisario Betancourt Barco. Yeah, we can find a more independent Colombia. And after that, in the 90s, Colombia was using NAM for our own interests. Okay, very briefly, the foreign policy between Colombia and USA. Yeah, so during the years of the Cold War, Colombia was unconditional with the United States. As I said before, after Venezuela, he was one of the best allies in South America. And I think one of the best after the Chavez and Venezuela crisis. Colombia is a very, very good ally. Ally means that always in the international forums, for example, Colombia votes in the same way of the United States. For example, a very, very short example, I remember recently, most of the Latin American countries vote in the United Nations for the recognizing a Palestinian state. Colombia wasn't. Colombia votes against that recognition. And we have a Palestinian kind of embassy here in Bogota. So it's very interesting to see that because we vote always in the same way of the United States. But we have a very high dependence of the United States until now. Okay, the 80s were actually an exception with Betancourt and Barco, an exception vis-a-vis of the foreign policy with the United States. In the 90s, we have very severe neoliberal policies from the hand of the International Monetary Fund, the policy of the free trade with the United States. We have a free trade agreement, very unfair agreement, financial aid, yeah, and especially fight against the drug trafficking. So we had during the 90s a very high dependency, and until now it's like that. And at the beginning of the 21st, at the beginning of the 21st century, we have the Plan Colombia. We had in this picture two president of the United States, George W. Bush, and President of Colombia, Álvaro Uribe. He's from very right in the political system. And we have at the beginning of the 21st century, the Plan Colombia, very high investment from the United States in Colombia for fighting the drug trafficking. It's the moment of very high investment in the army, in the war, yeah. Very high period, the beginning of the 21st century of the human rights violations in Colombia, yeah. So it's the period of the Uribe ambush, the war on terror, very high cooperation. So that's why there is not an active role of Colombia in the NAM, because Uribe wasn't interested in that. After him, President Santos used the NAM just for supporting the peace process with the FARC. That issue in 2016. 2016. So in conclusion, for closing this presentation, Colombia joined the NAM in the 80s as a consequence of the position of President Betancourt, who proposed a real autonomy vis-a-vis of the United States and in support of its peace process with the guerrillas. However, in the 90s, Colombia was verifying its high dependence on the United States in economical matters. To this were added problems such as the internal war, the economic crisis, and the social crisis, in such a way that the permanence of Colombia in the NAM was more given to seeking aid with countries with which it had not maintained relations in the past, that almost permanently it maintained a policy with the United States of fidelity and constant alignment. His state at NAM was really an instrument to meet the objectives that the current situation demanded. So, okay, so yeah. How can I start the presentation here? Okay. So I tried to make this very short presentation about that, but in conclusion, I think that for Colombia, the war and the conflict armed mark is very important for understanding the participation of Colombia in the NAMs. Always with Betancourt, and after with Uribe, and after with Santos, is the peace process, the war against guerrilla, the drug trafficking. It's very important for understanding that. And it's very important for understanding why we are so aligned with the United States. So thank you so much for this time.
Thank you very much, David, for your presentation. As a matter of fact, Colombia was the center of United States hegemony and military reorganization during the last 2 decades, and it was a very high impact in the whole region. Thank you. Next in our list would be Ambassador Samuel Pinheiro Guimarães, but since he still couldn't join our room, we are going to, we expect to have him at the end of our meeting, maybe. And now I have the pleasure to present our next participant, Rafael Roncagliolo, Peruvian like me, a very good friend. He is a sociologist, journalist, and university professor specialized in communication rights. He was foreign minister of Peru from July 2011 to May 2013. And I would like to say that during this period, he had an outstanding work in the Union of South American Nations, UNASUR, exactly when Peru held the presidency of the integration project. It's a great pleasure to have Rafael with us this morning. Please, Rafael, feel free to start your presentation.
Many thanks for the invitation. And thank you to all of you participants in these meetings. Congratulations for the initiative. I think it is very important to maintain the idea and the spirit of the non-aligned movement, especially in these times of realignments and impositions in the scenario of the fight against the pandemic of coronavirus. Thinking in terms of Peruvian participation in the NOAM, I would like to share with you 3 points. My first point refers to the historical background that preceded Peru's entry into the non-aligned movement. Peru has, I believe, a very particular history of involvement in regional confrontations with imperial powers, which started since its independence from Spain in 1821. We have to remember that Peru's independence was the result of a real international, real South American war, being the capital of the most important Spanish viceroyalty in South America, to gain the independence of Peru and to secure the entire region. Troops from other countries had to come to Peru. From Argentina and Chile, commanded by Libertador General José San Martín, and from Venezuela, Colombia, and Ecuador, under the command of Libertador Simón Bolívar. This is the sole case where both armies joined forces to secure the independence of one country against the Spanish crown. Both San Martín and Bolívar governed Peru, as other Peruvian presidents at the beginning of the independent life, born in Bolivia or Ecuador, under the same common sentiment that was later called the Latin American nationalism, the identity of people coming or people born in different countries. So, from the beginning of its republican life, Peru has been particularly active in some of the efforts aimed at regional agreements in the face of threats and dangers of invasions by imperial powers. Just a few examples. In 1926, the call to the Congress of Panama was made by Simón Bolívar from Lima when he was governing Peru. The Congress in Panama provides an important example and reference for future hemispheric solidarity and self-defense in Latin America. Then, during the 19th century, many conferences were called by the Peruvian government in front of expeditions from Spain and other European countries. Also, the solidarity with Mexico in face of the invasion by France, the participation in the Cuban War of Independence, and in 1960, the opposition by Foreign Minister Raúl Porra Barrenechea to the exclusion of Cuba in the Conference of the Organization of American States in Costa Rica. These are some important facts that in some way are part of the heritage of Peruvian participation in international politics. In addition, I say that Peru has always been suspicious of foreign intervention, and it has borne the feeling that hegemonic powers, England first and the US later, have been leaning in favor of the neighbors during Peruvian conflicts of borders. So, before entering the NAM, Peru had already some tradition of solidarity with the other Latin American countries, plus some suspicion vis-a-vis imperial powers. Of course, I don't mean that Peruvian rulers were anti-imperialists. They were as docile as the other Latin American elites. But still, they had some attitude of solidarity and some reluctance against the US as part of its heritage. My second point is that Peru's very active role at the NAM is only understandable in the framework of an international policy conceived as part of a national policy developed between 1968 and 1976. This is during the government of General Juan Velasco Alvarado. In 1968, Peru had a military coup d'etat that seemed originally as a traditional coup, but soon it demonstrated it was not. The generals and colonels who carried out the coup had defeated the guerrillas of the 1960s and had concluded that only radical social reforms could prevent a bloody revolution. In 1969, the military government, 6 days after the coup, the military government decreed the nationalization of oil fields exploited since the beginning of the 20th century by the International Petroleum Company, a subsidiary of the Standard Oil of New Jersey. The troops seized the facilities of the IPC, and a confrontation with the United States immediately began. So, Peru joined the NAM in the context of a nationalistic military government that confronted investments and interests of the US since the nationalization of oil, and a policy framework that involved agrarian reform, the nationalization of natural resources, and numerous other economic and social reforms. Another contributing factor at that time was the convergence between the nationalist military in government and a group of eminent progressive diplomats, among which the best known is Javier Pérez de Cuellar, who support the effort of the military to develop an international policy of independence. In this context, and in order to face the reaction of the United States, Peru launched an international policy that asserted its independence. That includes, for example, the participation in the Consensus of Viña del Mar, which was an agreement among the Latin American countries to present a kind of reclamations to the US, the organization of CELA, the Latin American Economic System, with the participation of Cuba, and of course, the creation of the Andean Pact, the Junta del Acuerdo de Cartagena. Also, as part of this independent international policies, the establishment of relations with the US, the Soviet Union, China, and the other socialist countries. The solidarity with Cuba, which was very clear during Velasco's government, the purchase of armaments from both the West and the East, from France and the Soviet Union. So this is the context and the antecedents that Peru explained is becoming a member of the NAM in 1973, one of the first Latin American countries in becoming member of the NAM after Cuba and Chile. My third point is that the participation of Peru in the NAM generated clear benefits for the country. We were very active in the new War Information and Communication Order, the counterpart of the new International Economic Order, approved by the NAM, and important for Peru because of internal processes regarding the media, and that explain the active participation of Peru in the Algiers conference where this idea was approved. Also, the approved for the UN Convention for the Law of the Sea. In that time, Peru was very active in this convention, and many non-aligned countries subscribed the convention after the influence, I would say the influence or the explanation from Peru, Chile, and other countries. So we got the recognition and support of the majority of the countries of the world. It was in this context that a Peruvian diplomat, Javier Pérez de Cuellar, was elected Secretary General of the United Nations. It is symbolic that this Peruvian experience finished in 1976 during a ministerial conference of the non-aligned movement in Lima. It is when Velasco Alvarado was changed by General Morales Bermúdez as president of Peru, and it is the time where our active participation in the non-aligned movement finished. Later, we have had a very passive participation and a real lack of interest from the Peruvian government in the NAM. My conclusion is that we should urgently recover the purpose of an active non-alignment for the 21st century. The proposal begins with reestablishing the coordination and agreements between the countries from Latin America and the Caribbean, which today are going through the greatest fragmentation in their history. To that end, we need to recreate the spirit of collective self-reliance as a basis to an autonomous, non-aligned movement in this century. Thank you very much, and please excuse me for my poor English. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Rafael. Thank you very much for your presentation and for this call to recover this legacy of active participation of Latin American at NAM in this 21st century. I think.
Just quickly before we move on, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Beatriz, I've tried calling the ambassador, but I can't, and I don't really know why. I think it's because I'm in France. Do you have any other way I could contact him?
What I said to him, because I think for this session it would be impossible, that
Okay.
during the 15 minutes we have between one session and the other, perhaps we can manage to give some new orientations. But at this moment, I think he is not more available because so nervous it was. So I'm very, very sorry for him and for us, because he would have a very interesting presentation with his experience, long experience in Itamaraty, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Brazil, during the Lula's government. But unfortunately, I don't know. I have no more possibilities, and I think he is not going to attend the phone now. We combined to speak. Yeah, very sorry. We combined to speak during these 15 minutes we have between one session and the other. And perhaps he could attend the second session. I'm not sure. I don't know. Let's speak during these 15 minutes we have. Yeah? Thank you very much.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea, Beatriz. Maybe we can try to include in the agenda of the second roundtable. If we start exactly on time, maybe it's possible. And now we have just 10 minutes for discussion and debate. I opened the roundtable while you were trying to get connection with Samuel, Beatriz. But since you are really the organizer of these two tables on Latin America, I'm just a supporter of your work. I would like to pass the microphone for you to make your considerations and open this round of opinion and discussion, last minutes of debates. I think that your microphone is closed.
Yeah, I was saying that I thank Monica for her work. Excuse me? No, I was saying that I appreciate Monica's words, but we both are the aims of this session, and I'm particularly very, very proud and very happy to have this discussion in the Rise of Asia cycle of conferences, because you see, Latin America has always been, and we are now hearing important positions which are in a very clear way explaining the deep reasons that Latin America hasn't been more cooperative or more inclusive with Asian and African countries. But I agree totally with the last consideration of my dear friend Rafael, for a long time friends and cooperating in so many projects, that NAM, the spirit of NAM, and of course the spirit of Bandung, is really important to inspire Latin American countries in particular, all the world, all the South, the global South, but particularly the Latin American countries in this very difficult period we are facing in this in this moment particularly, but also some years ago. So I would like to simply say that I hope that Latin Americans, scholars, journalists, researchers will join this cycle of conferences that wish to have more participants with us debating the legacy of Bandung and the legacy of NAM, the perspective for the future, and building a strong network, because we have to face in this moment one problem. I think it is very challenging. We don't have, I think, we lack two things in this moment. One, real leadership. We have seen yesterday a very, very touching movie about the meeting in Belgrade in 1961. And we have seen so many important leaders, real thinkers, real statesmen you see, which a deep and grounded baggage of knowledge, politically knowledge, and also a deep compromise with their peoples. So we lack this in this moment, unfortunately. And I think we lack also a theoretical framework to understand the moment we are living. So I hope this session bringing us this historical development of Latin America in relation to NAM will inspire us to think as Latin Americans, our future, and as members of the Global South, the importance of the South-South cooperation, particularly among us who are at the research and in the education at the universities, trying to maintain through the new generations alive these ideas and these ideals, yeah, and the inspiration for the force, for the strength to assume the responsibility of transforming our world in a very human, solidarian world. So thank you very much, all of you, to be with us. And I think we should open for the public for whatever comments or questions. But I'm not sure if we have finished. Yeah, I think, yeah, all the, Monica, all the speakers in this session, yeah? Because I was attending the
Yes.
ambassador. Okay,
we should have all.
I lost some parts, yeah.
We should have also Pedro Paez, but he is not with us in the room.
Okay,
So
okay. I was thinking that there was some more
the presentations, and we
Yeah.
have this 5 minutes of debate at the end of
Oh,
the session.
That's it.
So if somebody would like to put any consideration.
May I speak?
Please.
Yeah, I think there are many questions, and we will not have time to discuss all in 5 minutes. So I just want to say to all of you, thank you very much for your participation. And then that we will have the next step of our meeting in Indonesia in October for commemorating Bandung, Belgrade, and Havana. So I hope everybody can join us. If the sanitary situation is improved, because we don't know yet what will happen. This crisis may be long and beyond October, I think. Several countries already announced that it goes until next year. So, but we have just discovered by this Zoom that it is possible to make assemblies of general assembly, a kind of general assembly of scholars and activists of social and solidarity movement based on Bandung spirit, Bandung, Belgrade, Havana. So I think, and of course, it's also cheaper. But in case the sanitary situation improved, we have freedom of movement, and we have money to go.
That's a key point.
Yeah, but anyway, there is no problem for visa because Indonesia is the most open country in the world. Everybody can go to Indonesia without visa, including small countries of Gabon, Togo, or Ecuador, or San Salvador. They can enter into Indonesia without visa.
Maybe we will not visa, but we may need the vaccine to get into Indonesia.
Yeah, I don't know yet. Yeah,
another kind of visa of the
yeah.
of this year.
Yeah.
No, that's.
But
I just want to announce this because we will not have time to discuss in 5 minutes.
Yeah, Darwish, we should think on the possibility, if we have the chance to have a physical meeting,
Yeah.
to have also the possibility of, in some sessions at least, to have a Zoom meeting to cooperate or to coordinate with the physical discussion. I think
Yes.
this will be in the future one important tool to
Yeah.
hybrid meetings.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So, if we have to put an end to this session, I would like to remember all of you that you are, of course, welcome and invited to continue with us in the second session dedicated to Latin America in a few minutes. Yeah. And perhaps we can summarize some of the discussions and complete the possible questions that this meeting has arose. Is the same room, Luis or Herbert, Guillaume, the same room we will be? Yeah,
It's the same.
so it's
Yes,
very,
the same
it's
room.
very
Yes,
Same
easy.
room.
It's
The same
very easy. Just you can interrupt the video for some minutes, but just to come back, it's very easy. Yeah.
Thank you, Beatriz. Then it's exactly 11:31 here in Brazil, 3:31 in France. We are finishing this meeting, and in 15 minutes we are going to begin the next session, number 12. Everybody invited. We finally just would like to say thank you very much to our three speakers this morning, and invite everybody to join us in the next session in 15 minutes. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, excellent session. Even though I have lost some parts, but it's a wonderful discussion. Very, very important. Thank you, Isabel, David, and Rafael. Excellent
Thank you so much.
presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the best greetings from Colombia.